Welcome back. U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, and Ambassador Mike Huckabee are in Gaza today. They visited a controversial aid distribution site run by a U.S.-Israel-backed humanitarian foundation. Their visit comes as the UN says more than 1,300 Palestinians have been killed while seeking aid in that enclave since late May. It says most have been killed by the Israeli military. CBS News senior foreign correspondent Debora Patta brings us more from Jerusalem.
Israel wants the world to believe there is no starvation in Gaza. But look at this. Palestinians so hungry, they've been reduced to fighting each other for food. In a battle where only the strongest survive, the race forced to pick up scraps in the dirt. Now, to prove that they are not restricting aid, the IDF took us to an aid collection point just inside Gaza. It was only 15 miles away from that humiliating scramble for aid, with enough food and water to fill 800 trucks. They let us look around but refused to answer any questions on camera, simply insisting that their responsibility to deliver aid to Gazans stops here, and blaming the United Nations for not collecting and distributing it fast enough. In fact, aid organizations have told us that Israel is still making the distribution of food inside Gaza almost impossible. It takes hours to get trucks to centers. They're being held up at checkpoints, and the humanitarian pauses are only in a few areas. Everywhere else in Gaza is still at war. Aid workers say Palestinians are so crazed with hunger, they will do anything. Here you see one of their trucks being overwhelmed by civilians, desperate to get their hands on something to eat. Aid groups say that the supplies coming in are simply not enough to reverse what experts say is a worst-case scenario of famine unfolding in Gaza. Debora Patta, CBS News, East Jerusalem.
CBS News Middle East reporter Courtney Kealy joins us now from our D.C. bureau. Courtney, those were some sobering stats and images out of Gaza. Help us understand why Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Ambassador Huckabee are choosing to visit these sites now. It seems quite significant.
Right. The reason why they're there really is because President Trump, speaking from Scotland earlier this week when he was on that trip with and alongside the Prime Minister of the UK, basically said there need to be new food centers. He acknowledged starvation. He broke with Bibi Netanyahu on this. And now we're seeing Steve Witkoff in the area, not only meeting with Israelis, but also going on the ground inside Gaza, although we have to note he was escorted by IDF forces along with the U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee. Now, Mike Huckabee did speak about the trip, and he praised the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation for their work there, which is it's completely different from what we just heard from Debora Patta. Debora Patta is showing the reality on the ground, the aid not getting in. And still, it seems the president and his envoy and his representative, the ambassador, are saying that the GHF is successful in Gaza. But that's not what we're hearing from other aid groups, other people on the ground, or obviously anyone inside Gaza that's reporting from there.
And Courtney, it's also quite jarring the images the administration is sharing. Ambassador Huckabee is wearing a helmet. Everyone seems to have bulletproof vests. There's this chain link fence wiring around these food distribution sites. And this is as the UN finds more than 1,300 Palestinians have been killed just trying to get food since May. Why are those casualty figures so high, and why is it so dangerous that even U.S. representatives have to be almost fully protected?
Well, it is still a war zone, even though the IDF and Prime Minister Netanyahu have suspended any kind of airstrikes during the hours of aid being delivered. When we say Palestinians killed, I have to mention specifically by live fire while trying to get aid from these Gaza humanitarian foundations, a few centers. It was not stampedes, it was IDF live fire. And we have somebody from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation that has become a whistleblower. He's a U.S. Special Forces Anthony Aguilar. And he's saying he witnessed war crimes, that in all of his time as an active service member for the U.S., he has never seen anything more brutality used and indiscriminate and unnecessary. But meanwhile, we have Ambassador Mike Huckabee praising the GHF, that's the acronym for Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, saying they're delivering a million meals a day, which is not true, and that they've delivered over 100 meals in the last 2 months. Those meals have not been delivered effectively. We've seen the pictures. We also see the picture of famine and starvation, but we're also hearing from aid groups that are calling it a famine. We're hearing from not only just outside internationally, but this week we heard from Physicians for Human Rights that has an Israeli Voice now, rights group, along with Bet Salem, saying it's a genocide. And they wrapped up not just the famine, but they're also saying the lack of medical care, the lack of any medicine going in or any medical supplies, that needs to be integral to food going in. So we're going to have to hear what President Trump decides about this after his envoy and his ambassador, the U.S. ambassador there. But we are hearing, according to Axios, he had a brief phone call with Netanyahu. So we'll be reporting that more soon.
So much important information from this part of the world. Courtney Kealy breaking all of it down for us. Courtney, thank you very much.